Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, dear guests, grace be, peace, God, mercy, and blessing be upon you. We welcome to you in your country, Saudi Arabia, in the first summit of MGI. Today we gather to coordinate our efforts to protect the environment and to confront the change of the climate and to reduce the carbon for more than 10% and to participate and to grace more than 50 million trees in the area, which is one of the biggest in the world, and it should participate in 5% in the global standard. Today, we are hoping to have a roadmap to achieve these ambitious goals. Dear guests, Saudi Arabia believes that the energy resources, the traditional ones that changed the economies of the countries to different economies, and it is the change of these economies. Today, we are initiating a green era of the area, believing that these changes are not only for the environment but also on the economy and the security. We believe that the change climate is an opportunity also for the private sector, which the initiative should create jobs and quality jobs. And dear guests, there are gaps in the ecosystem of the environment work, and with our cooperation, we can achieve many achievements. And Saudi Arabia will create a platform to create to create a center for the and also to
and also establishing a regional program for rains and of the clouds. And these centers and programs will have a big role to play in protecting our environment and reducing the emissions and increasing the coordination in the region. In extension to our pioneering role in growing the energy markets, we will establish the investment funds for the circular carbon economy and an international economical initiative in order to provide food for more than 750 million people in the world through an initiative with more than 930 million riyals, and we will provide funding for more than 13% of them. We will work with regional and international members in order to search for ways to implement these initiatives. And in order to uplift the coordination level, we will announce the establishment of the Green Initiative Foundation to support our missions in the future. In conclusion, to counteract the change of climate, we need to create the environment in order to protect our natural resources in the region and to enhance our cooperation to achieve that. I invite now ladies and gentlemen to participate, providing us with their statements. Thank you very much, and peace be upon you all.
Now I give the word to Mishal Al-Sabah, the Crown Prince of Kuwait. In the name of God, grace be to God that made the earth for us, and he's citing from a Quran, and the meaning here is that the earth is, thank God for making this earth for us. Your Highness, Your Royal Highness, our brother Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, the Crown Prince the Crown Prince and the Minister of the Defense of Saudi Arabia, Your Excellencies, Your Highnesses, ladies and gentlemen, grace be to God and prayers and peace be upon our Prophet Mohammed. At the beginning, it's my pleasure to
الملك سلمان بن عبد العزيز آل سعود حفظه الله ورعاه وإلى سمو الملكي الأمير محمد
Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdul Aziz, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, may Allah protect them both. And also extend my respect and gratitude to the people and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, thanking them for what we have touched in terms of the hospitality and the generosity of this generous country. It is my pleasure to extend the greetings from His Royal Highness, the Prince of Kuwait, Sheikh Nawaf bin Ahmed al-Jabir al-Sabah. May Allah protect him and his wishes for the success in the works of this summit. I'd like also to express my happiness being here in Riyadh, the city of glory, answering this generous invitation to participate in the Middle East Green Initiative Summit. Your Excellencies, Your Highnesses, Excellencies, the MGI Summit comes in these exceptional environmental circumstances where the whole world works in order to take care of environment, economy, and society. It is no secret for anyone that the continuity of the climate change will lead us to be vulnerable to a series of disasters, including the forest fires, floods, the destruction of the agricultural crops, and the dryness and the scarcity of water, hunger, and the spread of epidemics and sicknesses and diseases. The invitation from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the sister country, launching this initiative comes from its core role of responsibility in the region and in the whole world in order to spread the concept of safety in terms of environment, climate, humans, and society. This is the fate of the kingdom and their choice. It's the main destination for us. It is the destination of taking the initiative and taking responsibility for the environment, mostly taking responsibility for its international responsibility, and our gathering here in the summit is a clear indication that they are exerting all efforts to have success for the international efforts to combat climate change that will be suffered by a number of countries, especially Kuwait. Kuwait was and has always been one of the pioneering countries trying to achieve human environmental sustainability and a main partner supporting every effort to coordinate national and international and regional efforts in order to combat climate change globally. Kuwait will never neglect its duties in this context, and we have a lot of presidencies that confirm in terms of our approval and ratification of the agreements, conventions, and protocols, regional, international, participation in related conventions and conferences, and seeking to positively participate in order to achieve all agreements that will preserve and protect the rights of the countries of the region to move on track in order to achieve sustainable development, keeping up with the strategic our national strategic priorities. Kuwait also urged all of the countries of the world to respond positively and interactively to achieve sustainability in environment. And on the national level, Kuwait launched its environmental strategy within the vision of New Kuwait 2035, in addition to the legislations related to environment and the laws to protect environment and the rationalization of the use or the consumption of natural resources and reduction of pollution rates, and also protecting environment and rehabilitation and restoring its ecosystems and protecting biodiversity and improving the waste management systems and employing renewable energies and building and renewing national capacities in the field of environmental work. These plans are implemented within the strong partnerships between the different governmental specialized entities, as well as the oil sector, the private sector companies, and the social community, civil society. Your Highnesses, Excellencies, Kuwait has a vision that confirms that the future of humanity lies within the green solutions and the governance of natural resources and the importance of linking individual efforts to the regional and international initiatives. And this is what Kuwait is thriving to achieve through the participation in this summit, which is emerging from Kuwait's interest in protecting our environmental sustainability. On the ground, we have environmental sustainability plans aiming to sustain the tracks of the carbon neutrality and increasing the green areas and establishing land and sea preserves and rehabilitating and restoring the oil sector facilities, and also reduction of emissions, improving the level of energies, using and renewable energies and sustainability of energy sources for the coming generations, emerging in new projects like the Zohr International Refinery and the phosphate handling project and the fifth gas pipeline. Given that Kuwait is interested in treating the climate change issue, we totally support the initiative of our colleagues and our brothers in Saudi Arabia, and we will work together hand in hand in order to achieve the purposes and the objectives of this initiative that will result in a lot of benefits on the Middle East countries. We also would like to confirm that we are interested and we are paying a lot of attention to, with direct directions from His Royal Highness, the Prince of the country, the Prince of the State, Sheikh Nawaf Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, for environment and what the environment faces in terms of challenges through taking the necessary actions and measures that will reduce emissions and help work with the international community in order to achieve the objectives of SDGs. In conclusion, Kuwait confirms that we will fully support the efforts of our bigger sister country, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, in terms of the package of initiatives provided and suggested in order to protect the environment, and we fully trust that Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will manage that profile well with the supervision of His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, may Allah protect him, and the custodian of the two holy mosques. And we confirm that we will serve no efforts and we will provide all kinds of support and compliance in order to achieve the recommendations coming out of this summit. Kuwait is eager to activate bilateral relations in these regards, studies, in order to transfer knowledges and experiences, especially the Saudi-Kuwaiti relations. Let's all cooperate together bilaterally, multilaterally, and let all civil society organizations, peoples, and individuals work together in this file and profile. The invitation is open for all, and the doors of Kuwait are always and forever will be open. May God bless all of your efforts. May Allah bless the efforts of the organizers and the supervisors of this initiative. And we ask Allah to reward you in this world and in the hereafter. May Allah provide us with success, and you as well, to the success of our nations and our peoples, and God's peace and blessings be upon you all. Thank you, Your Highness. Now the speech is for His Royal Highness Prince Hussein bin Abdullah Al Thani, the Crown Prince of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan.
In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, grace be to God and prayers and peaceful be upon our Prophet Mohammed. Your Highnesses, Excellencies, peace, God's mercy and blessing be upon you. First, I would like to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman ibn Abdulaziz, and my dear brother, His Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, for organizing this summit on climate change, the most urgent challenge of our time. Unfortunately, this challenge fails to receive the level of attention it demands, even though the three major monotheistic religions all consider protecting the environment to be a matter of faith. Islam, for example, asks us to refrain from cutting down trees, wasting water, or even hunting outside of prescribed season. This is culture of conscientiousness is universal, and no reasonable or well-informed individual would accept any less. So, we hope the outcomes of this summit will extend beyond this region. The effects of climate change know no borders, and we must all work to confront them. In Jordan, we face a number of climate challenges. Chief among them is water scarcity. Our resources have been severely strained after welcoming consecutive waves of refugees over the past decades. Nonetheless, we have not lost sight of the importance of safeguarding the environment. Our 2021-25 Green Growth National Action Plan covers multiple sectors, including agriculture, energy, water, and waste management. Jordan's 2030 nationally determined contributions signal our commitment to serving as a regional and global partner in efforts to counter climate change and mitigate its impacts. In our region, there is plenty of grounds of optimism. For example, green projects springing up in Saudi Arabia have the potential to create major opportunities for the private sector and hundreds of thousands of jobs, all while safeguarding the environment. Your Highnesses, Excellencies, we hope today to come to an agreement on the adaptation of government-level policies to counter the impact of climate change. This includes implementing modern, water-saving farming practices, accelerating the shift toward renewable energy, prompting the use of electric vehicles, and converting waste into an energy source. Let us establish decisive policies, provide sustainable financing, and rise up to face climate change. At the same time, we must also not forget the urgent need to refrain common perception of this challenge, so let us develop educational systems that will contribute solutions to counteract this global phenomenon. We owe as much to current and future generations. Peace, God's mercy, and blessings upon you.
Thank you, Your Highness. Now the speech is for His Excellency Ahmed bin Abdul Rahman, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad, his family and companions. Your Excellency, Your Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz, Crown Prince, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Defense of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Your Highnesses, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear attendees, may God's peace and blessings be upon you all. In the beginning, I'd like to transfer and to communicate to you our thankfulness for inviting us and the greetings from His Majesty, the head of the country, Abdulmajid Tebboune, who honored me to speak on his behalf in this summit. And I'd like to express my gratitude and thankfulness for the cousin of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, and His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, thanking them for their hospitality and generosity and that we touched since we arrived at the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the country of the two holy mosques. Your Highnesses, Excellencies, our meeting comes in this important and special time, critical time that the whole world faces, and in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic that poses new challenges in addition to the different agenda of concerns for our governments and peoples. This indicates us and urges us to find new solutions in order to counter the problems and the challenges that we are facing all over the world, especially those emerging because of the misuse of natural resources in economic competitiveness that is unfair, leading to imbalances that negatively impacted the climate and will lead soon to a real threat to the lives of people and the economies of countries. This urges us today to greet the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and to support the initiative in order to provide quantum leaps in order to create new regional vision in order to qualify and unify the climate change efforts in measures in the regional Arab world and in the whole world. Your Excellencies, my country, out of its belief in achieving sustainability and green future economy, we are cherishing all of these efforts and we are ready to support the Green Middle East Green Initiative and all other initiatives that will help reduce the temperatures and fight forest fires that even reached our region in the Middle East. In order to achieve that, we need to to respond to the call of the climate in order to support this blessed summit in order to come up with mutual and joint recommendations that are effective and interactive in order to be used and implemented in all over the region, especially that we have close weather circumstances, and also in the G20 meeting and the United Nations 26th COP next November. The importance that Algeria poses under the leadership of Abdulmajid Tebboune, the head of the country, to face this challenge through the constitutional efforts in order to save natural resources and to face climate change and take policies necessary in order to overcome related challenges in order to drive our sustainability agenda ahead in order to provide sustainability for the next generations. Within this context, Algeria reaffirms, like we always did, that we will adhere to our efforts towards the climate change and playing a positive role through our plan from 2020 to 2030 regarding climate, which is a practical instrument in order to implement our 10-year plan to combat climate change and to grow green economy. This policy originally is based on the encouraging of economy in the field of waste management and renewable energy by creating new governmental bodies specialized like the Energy Transfer and Renewable Energy Ministry that work on the acceleration of these projects in the field of energy effectiveness and the green hydrogen production. That is a priority for us. Algeria, for long decades, took the initiative by a big, promising project, which is the Green Dam in a vast area, and we are now working on reviving this important environmental to be 4.7 million hectares in the next few years in order to contribute positively to the initiative that was started by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in order to protect our climate by the consolidated efforts of all of us. We will save no efforts in Algeria in order to contribute to the exchange of experiences with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and all other countries that want to increase their clean energy share of their economies. And we would like to confirm that Algeria has always ratified a number of international conventions or agreements to combat the rise of the emissions, the increasing emissions of CO2, and also to commit and to urge all other countries to commit to take their responsibilities and to take in consideration the differences between different countries walking on the development route. Your Highnesses, Excellencies, in conclusion, I would like to express that Algeria is comfortable given that it's a main player in the international community in terms of protecting environment. And we are here in this summit, and we attended many other international conferences and summits in this vital role. And I wish you the success in this summit, and thank you for listening, and peace and blessings be upon you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Highness. Now,
Thank you, Your Royal Highness, for convening this extremely important summit right before the critical meeting we will have in Glasgow in a few days from now. Greece is a member of the European Union, hence we are also committed to the goal of making Europe the first carbon-neutral continent by 2050. And our goal with our other EU member states is to reduce our greenhouse gases by 55% by 2030. In order to achieve this ambitious target, we are undertaking a series of important initiatives. The most important one is to make sure that we stop producing electricity from coal, the latest by 2028. We're also pushing hard the penetration of renewables, and we hope that we will be one of the first Mediterranean countries to introduce a concrete framework to introduce offshore wind, electricity production from offshore wind in our country, and we hope to have the relative piece of legislation up for public consultation within the next weeks. Our goal would be to have 2 gigawatts of offshore wind as part of our electricity production mix by 2030. Overall, we aim to mobilize more than 25 billion euros in total in investments in helping us achieve our green transition. We're fortunate enough to receive a lot of support from the European Union towards that goal through what we call the Recovery and Resilience Fund. 32 billion euros in total will be allocated to Greece over the next 7 years. And a significant proportion of that amount will be spent on green investments. I place particular emphasis, Your Royal Highness, on Greece's position as an entry point of clean energy into the European market. We have just recently concluded a very important negotiation with Egypt to begin the construction of an electricity cable that will allow very cheap energy produced from the sun to enter the European market. But of course, we can also be the natural entry point for liquefied natural gas, and of course, for hydrogen. If there is interest in exporting hydrogen to Europe, Greece would be the first country to welcome these hydrogen exports and then make sure that they make their way into the European market. I would also like to point out that Greece is the leading shipping power in the European Union. We control 50% of the merchant fleet in Europe. Hence, I aspire our ship owners to be at the forefront of reducing greenhouse gases in shipping. It is a very difficult challenge, as you know, which will require significant investment and significant innovation, but I would hope that we play an active role in that direction. As you know, we're also a country that is comprised of many islands, and I think there is a tremendous opportunity to highlight what it means to have islands that become carbon neutral even before the mainland. And we're in the process of teaming up with various private but also public entities in establishing pilot projects to lead, especially our smaller islands, towards carbon neutrality. Finally, on the adaptation side, as you know, my country was hit by devastating wildfires during last summer. I would like to thank many of your countries who have offered us support during these difficult times. We have decided to set up a dedicated ministry for civil protection and the climate crisis, and we would hope amongst Mediterranean countries to be the leaders in developing new techniques to fight wildfires. This is a problem that is unfortunately here to stay. And finally, an issue which I think is of importance to all of us, the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East is the cradle of civilization. And I think we should put more effort and energy in studying the consequences of climate change on our cultural heritage. We have an obligation to make sure that what passed to us from previous generations remains intact. Hence, I think this is a topic where we could unite our forces and think creatively about how to protect cultural heritage from the adverse effects of climate change. Your Royal Highness, thank you again very much for inviting Greece to this very important summit.
شكرا دولتكم.
Thank you. Greece is a neighboring country in the Mediterranean, and we hope that we will have a positive results of this summit. Now I'll give this speech to Mr. Aziz Akhnouch, Prime Minister of Moroccan Kingdom. In the name of Allah, most merciful, most compassionate, peace and blessing be upon our Prophet Muhammad. Your Royal Highness Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, Crown Prince, Deputy Prime Minister, and Minister of Defense in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, brother country, Your Highnesses, Excellencies, allow me at the beginning to convey the greetings of His Majesty King Mohammed to the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz. May Allah protect him, and to the Crown Prince, His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman, may Allah protect him. And also his greetings and the best of luck for this high-level summit of success for the application of awareness of the climate change and to advance in environmental issues and sustainable development in the Middle East. I would like to seize this opportunity to express my gratitude and the gratitude of the Kingdom for the two initiatives of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to organize Saudi Green Initiatives and MGI. These two initiatives, which come under the efforts made by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the protection of the environment and the efforts made within its presidency of G20, allow me as well to praise the ambitious goal of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia announced by the Kingdom to target to neutralizing C2 by 2020. These initiatives reflect clearly the foresight vision of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to confront the challenges related to environment and climate change. Your Your Highnesses, Excellencies, in implementation of the political will of His Majesty King Mohammed, Morocco initiated voluntary to have integration and approach which reflect the national strategic goals of sustainable development to make a transition to green economy in alignment and harmony with the international efforts and international organization of the climate experts and SDGs. And in this regard, we have a plan for the climate change 2021-2030 to adopt and to have transition to a low carbon economy and to enhance the policies at the national and international and encourage innovation and raise the level of awareness for the challenges of climate change. And this blueprint enhance the governance and finance to combat climate change and resort to the to solutions relying on nature and to use renewable energy. The kingdom as well increased its contribution to reduce greenhouse gases, to reduce such emissions by 45.5% by 2030. In contribution to this, for Paris Agreement, the kingdom has well-integrated strategy to have low carbon development and shaping the directives to reduce the carbon print by increasing the use of renewable energy. Your Royal Highnesses, Excellencies, in alignment with the comprehensive strategic vision of King Mohammed, the Kingdom of Morocco has the national priority, and it has priorities of this program aims to provide water resources, especially in agriculture and reuse of wastewater and desalination of seawater. And the kingdom encouraged the planting of trees. We have planted 10 million trees annually in the framework of the Green Zone, which launched by His Majesty the King. And for the palm trees, especially, we within the last year, the last decades, we have planted more than 1,000 palm trees as part of the new agriculture framework. And His Majesty launched the forest strategy, which constitutes a turning point for preserving forestation and creating a balance between the conserving ecological system and development of its resources, and planting more than 50,000 hectares by 2030. Distinguished guests and gathering, Your Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Your Highnesses, distinguished guests, the financing is the crucial element to build a green, sustainable economy, which is to implement the common responsibility. And in this regard, achieving the goal of 100 billion to combat climate change by 2020 is still far-fetched, and to limit the climate change. So it's imperative to think about the investment of economic activities which can strike a balance between social, economic, and objectives, and producing new financial products and tools friendly to the environment, to enhance the role of the financial sector and to finance the project. We need more tools and mechanism and to offer promising and alternative financing tools rather than the conventional one. The financing has a great amount of importance for combating the climate challenge, and not only as financial resources, but as a catalyst. And we need to enhance the regional cooperation regarding the issues of climate change and adopting a more coordinated approach and integrated approach of different components of the international community. As I would like to express my thanks and gratitude to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, this brother country, for hospitality in this blessing land. And it's not strange for the Saudi people and its wise leadership. I would like to thank you all. Thank you,
Thank you, Your Excellency. The speech now is for His Excellency Imran Khan, Prime Minister of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Highness, Prince Mohammed, Excellencies, first of all, I really want to congratulate you for this great initiative that you've taken. Greening Saudi Arabia, it's romantic, it's idealistic, and all my prayers are with you. And inshallah, all the experience that we have had in so far planting 2.5 billion trees in Pakistan, and our target is 10 billion trees, so we will be sharing all our experience with you, Highness. 10% of the countries are responsible for 80% of world emissions. And Pakistan happens to be one of those countries, Excellencies. Unfortunately, we are in the 10 most vulnerable countries in the world to climate change. I'll just, in the last 10 years, what we've been through, we've had 152 extreme weather events, which has triggered economic loss of over $3.8 billion. Our future climate adaptation costs are estimated between $6 to $14 billion. So we decided that before the world takes any action, we as a country, for our own survival, must take whatever it is possible within our reach. So these are the actions we've taken. We've decided that we will shift 60% of all our energy into clean energy by 2030. 30% of all transport will be shifted to electric vehicles by, again, 2030. We've already shelved 2,400 megawatts of coal projects, replaced them by 3,700 megawatts of hydroelectricity. Then we've committed that there will be no new coal projects in Pakistan. The only energy through coal will be through gasifications, and that is local coal, which is in Pakistan. We've also focused on nature-based solutions. We have, as I mentioned, we have invested, this is our biggest initiative, in 10 billion trees. We've already planted 2.5 billion. And secondly, mangroves. Pakistan is the only country where the mangrove cover is growing. And as you would all know, mangroves absorb the highest amount of carbon emissions. So we plan to plant 1 billion more mangrove trees by 2023. We're also expanding our wilderness. During the COVID crisis, we have increased our national parks by 50%. In the process, we have also provided green jobs, jobs that are related to improving our environment. 85,000 jobs we've produced, and by the next year, they should go up to 200,000. And finally, we have come up with a way of restoring our wetlands, recharging the water level, the aquifer. And this is through diversion of flood waters, which is, again, it's a new initiative that we have taken. Excellencies, the World Bank has put Pakistan as #1, the country that has used development finance and shifted it to climate-friendly trajectory. So 44% of all our financing has been climate-friendly. We have these initiatives how to finance our vision. And for that, we have, #1, we have green bonds. We have collected $500 million for hydroelectric power. Secondly, blue bonds, which is natural valuation of our mangroves, and World Bank is already doing that. Thirdly, nature bonds. Pakistan is piloting this globally by linking debt relaxation with nature and climate performance. And fourthly, we have energy transition mechanism, turning coal to green through innovative financing and addressing the green premium of this transition. Pakistan is again piloting this for clean transition of existing coal infrastructure. Finally, Prince Mohammed, again, I want to thank you that you've invited us here. The humanity faces probably one of the biggest crises. Unfortunately, this crisis was quite visible 20 years ago. But somehow we were all in self-denial. No one thought that this would actually happen, that actually the temperature was getting warmer. No one believed that there would be effects of this. Once you alter this balance of nature, there were always going to be implications, but no one thought there would be any implications. But just in the last 2 years, what we have seen, fires in Siberia, in California, in the Mediterranean, unprecedented, Australia. And then we have these flooding, unprecedented floodings. We in Pakistan face, and not just Pakistan, all along the whole humanity living on the base of the Himalayas and the Karakoram, which depend on their water, on the river waters from the glaciers. All of us face this stark reality that the glaciers are melting at a fast pace. And in years to come, unless we do something drastically, we will run out of water. Our rivers will not have water to feed our population. And this is not just in Pakistan, it is going to affect India. And on the other side, on the northern side of the mountain range, it's going to affect Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, all the countries that depend upon the glacier waters. So thank you for holding this great initiative. I want to thank you for inviting me. And I hope that all of us collectively take this challenge much more seriously than so far what we have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now I give Najla Bouden, the Prime Minister of Tunisia. In the name of Allah, Most Merciful, Most Compassionate, Your Royal Highness, Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, Crown Prince, Deputy Prime Minister, and Minister of Defense, Your Highnesses, Excellencies, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, peace be upon you all. First of all, I would like to convey the greetings of Qais Said, the President of the state, and his warm feeling to the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. And I would like to extend my thanks to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud with the much appreciation for initiating this initiative to unify efforts in the Middle East to fight climate change, which threaten us alone. And we need a swift movement to adverse this movement and to mitigate its impact. Your Excellencies, the challenges that present itself today go beyond in its repercussion to economic, social dimensions which exceeded the severity of COVID-19 and increased our witness with the social strata in different parts in the world, especially less developing and developing countries. Response to the sustainable recovery and green requires from us to shoulder our responsibility to accelerate and speed up this recovery within the next 8 years to ensure the smooth transition to green economy, which we should direct all efforts to recover and to restructure the economy and to limit global warming in alignment with the Paris Agreement. Tunisia invites in this regard to exert concerted efforts and mobilize efforts to adopt integrated and multi-dimensional approach within multiple partnership shaped by the private sector and the governments and NGOs and civil society to confirm the vital role of women and the youth in shaping such approach and the policies. Second, enhancing and reinforcing scientific research, innovation, and creating innovative solutions for the transition to green economy by using renewable and green energies and with the diversification and this regards by diversifying energy resources such as solar, hydro, and wood and wind energy, especially that the climate factors can help us in this regard. In this regard, I would like to confirm and stress that the importance of digital technology to make transition to energy and clean energy, which has become inevitable in this region to achieve the goal 13 of SDGs. 6, sharing knowledge and information and experience and technology transfer between advanced and developing countries, taking into the consideration the special needs of less developing countries and enhancing cooperation to implement and apply green economic policies at equal basis at different national, regional, and international levels. Fourth, the importance of green financing. So we cannot achieve the transition to green economy without increasing the investment in renewable energy projects and sustainable agriculture and farming. And so we asked the donors to increase their investment, development, easy loans for less and developing countries to advance them for the transition to a green economy. Our world today, we are in a very turning point which will shape the next decade for the green economy, especially the need of the emerging markets to redirect our financial markets for sustainable and resilient markets with high returns in alignment of the World Bank report. We firmly believe that we can change the challenges at the regional level and international level, especially in this current circumstance, into opportunities of cooperation to integrate social, environmental factors and institutional factors in different decision-making and encouraging sustainable financing in different sectors and governance of the environment by rebuilding our efforts. Your Royal Highnesses, Excellencies, I hope the best success for the benefit of the region and to preserve our rights and the next generation to build more just and future. I would like to express my thanks and wish you the best of luck. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Novak.
Ваше Королевское Высочество, наследный принц Мухаммед бен Сальман, уважаемые дамы и господа, рад возможности принять сегодня участие в сегодняшней конференции. Благодарю Ваше Высочество за приглашение и традиционно дружественный прием и гостеприимство. Также благодарю моего друга, принца Абдулазиза бен Сальмана. В первую очередь позвольте зачитать приветствие президента Российской Федерации Владимира Путина участникам и гостям конференции и королю Саудовской Аравии. Приветствую вас по случаю проведения в столице Королевства Саудовская Аравия представительного международного форума «Ближневосточная зеленая инициатива». Россия придает первостепенное значение вопросам природоохранной деятельности, и мы высоко ценим усилия саудовского руководства, направленные на защиту окружающей среды и преодоление экологических проблем, которые напрямую сказываются на качестве жизни миллионов людей. Выдвинутая королевством инициатива представляется весьма востребованной и своевременной. Ближний Восток сегодня сталкивается с серьезными вызовами экологического характера, среди которых загрязнение биосферы, дефицит пресной воды, учащающиеся засухи, возникающие риски для продовольственной безопасности. Важно, что разработанная
and a number of issues related to providing food.
технологий, в том числе для обеспечения
We also pay much attention to these
озеленения значительных пустынных территорий.
tasks and missions, and also greening the vast areas and the desert areas. Achieving these projects will be enabling us in order to uplift environment in the Middle East and the consolidated international efforts in this regard. I hope the success for our partners in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the success for the Saudi Green Initiative. The Russian Federation is always willing to contribute in the field of protecting environment. This is the message of the President of Russia. Your Excellencies, Russia supports and enhances the initiative of Saudi Arabia, the Middle East Green Initiative. Such projects that are aimed at uplifting the level of livelihood, and such projects that will enable us enhance international efforts in preserving environment. Russia also participated in the field of protecting environment. Our country ratified the International United Nations Conventions and the Paris Convention for environmental protection, the CO2 emissions as well. Russia tries to find balance, environmental balance. Russia is trying to uplift our level and to reach 90%, and we also are trying to increase the forests areas in our region, which is more than half of the area of Russia. We are also working on diversifying the energy sources, nuclear sources. We also use clean sources for energy. Russia also strives to reach zero carbon levels before 2060, including the use of the necessary technology in order to achieve such objectives. And we also seek collaborating with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Middle East countries in order to, and it is necessary to consolidate our efforts in order to use renewable energies and to reduce emissions in the atmosphere. We are required to take new decisions and to change the environmental balance in the world in order to use. We also need, based on our estimations, that these projects may be achieved, and we do believe that there is a basic rule for achieving such goals. This rule is very effective, and we need to use modern technology, and this will not be achievable without joint work by getting rid of CO2 and how to preserve it and how to deal with it. Russia is one of the pioneering countries in the field of energy, and we share Saudi Arabia their visions, and especially in the field of controlling carbon emissions and environmental security. Your Highnesses, Excellencies, Your Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman, I wish all the participants of this conference and this summit a fruitful discussion in order to protect our environment and climate in our planet, and thank you very much.
شكرا معاليكم. والآن أعطي الكلمة لمعالي السيد علي الأحمر نائب رئيس الجمهورية اليمنية، فليتفضل.
Now I give the floor to His Excellency Deputy Vice President of Yemen Republic of Yemen, Your Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Saud, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, and distinguished gathering, esteemed gathering. Good afternoon to you all. It's my pleasure and privilege to express my thanks, gratitude, and peace for the free countries, the free people around the world, in the light of the huge challenges that we witness, and with the increasing level of global warming and the repercussions of climate change that threaten life on Earth. It's my pleasure to express my thanks and appreciation to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, our brother country, under the leadership of the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, and the Crown Prince, His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. for hosting this summit, this significant summit, and for the sponsorship and the attention and the care given to the climate change file in the Middle East, which is considered a reflection of the Vision 2030. The transition and life industry in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in different areas and spheres and aspects, and while the Houthi militia spread destruction and devastation in Yemen. So it's my privilege to share with you on behalf of the President of the Republic of Yemen to be at this summit and encouraging this bold and ambitious initiative which tackle the negative repercussions of climate change and the reduction of CO2, the carbon emissions in the Middle East, and striving to address economic adverse effects such as desertation and drought and other environmental issues faced by the Middle East and the entire world in this regard. Launching of this promising initiative comes at a very critical time for the entire region and especially the Republic of Yemen, while we are working in cooperation with the kingdom for the mining of many minefields and for the reconstruction of Yemen and building the green belts in the major cities and the land reclamation and supporting farmers and growers in different parts of Yemen. The terrorist militia, Houthi militia, supported and sponsored by Iran, plants minefields and seas, in land, in water, in causeways to explode houses and spread chaos, devastation, and remove the vegetation cover. This has led to catastrophic consequences which have done damage to the Yemeni people, and this militia has controlled Safi reservoir held back by the Iranian sponsored militia to threaten to the international navigation and shipping, which need urgent maintenance, and due to these rebels to maintain and do maintenance of the shipping countries and refusing and ignoring international conventions and agreements. The starving policies perpetrated by the Houthi rebels. And the last one is the siege Ma'rib and displaced people. More than 3 million displaced people from different governorates fleeing from the terrorism committed by the militia. So they turned the life of the Yemeni people into hell. They destroyed everything, the infrastructure, and they launch. They use heavy weapons and plastic weapons and and explosive and to attack civilian targets in different parts of Yemen and in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as well. The Republic of Yemen supports Middle East Green Initiative and appreciate these efforts to make this summit successful and support and foster the partnership of the people of the region to establish a new partnership in environment which exceeds our borders and face and combat environmental challenges with bold actions. I would like to express my thanks to the Arab coalition led by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for their support to Yemen to confront the destruction and devastation committed by Houthi rebels. I would like to thank the other brotherly countries and friendly countries who provide support to Yemen to limit deterioration of the environment and to implement environmental projects and launch promising initiatives. And I hope for this summit success. And I express my thanks to the audience. Thank you all.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now the speech is for His Excellency Ali Alawi, Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister of the Republic of Iraq. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Your Highnesses, Excellencies, Deputy Prime Ministers, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, peace be upon you all. On behalf of Iraq, we would like to express our gratitude and thankfulness for the leadership of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, Prince Mohammed Salman, for inviting us to participate in this important initiative, the MGI initiative, in order to transform the future of all of our countries and all of the fields of our economy into a green economy free of emissions in a gradual manner that will contribute to the sustainability of life as we know it without negatively impacting the economies of our countries. Launching this initiative comes within this critical historical phase of the lives of humans on the planet, in which we all work on combating the climate change problem that threatens our livability on the planet. We don't have any choice but to work together in order to face this challenge and create solutions that are based on nature. Iraq comes with persistence to work together for a better future, for a better environment for our next generations. Iraq helped the foundation of the United Nations and ratified the Charter in 1945 and was active in all of the international events, but it did not sign the Climate Convention that was started in 1992 until 2009. For long decades, our environment and there were very policies that were destructive to our environment, and because of the accumulation of wrong policies that we started recently to work, we are still burning accompanying oil while we should have used it in order to generate electricity for long decades ago in order to reduce its impact on our environment. There are successful experiences all over the world in which one of them is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's experience. When we were children, we read that we have about 10 million people in Iraq, but the number of the palm trees was 40 million. And we used to say that Iraq is connected to palm trees. Now we have 40 million people in Iraq, but the number of the palm trees are just 10 million. This is due to wrong policies in all of these years and the lack of good planning and not caring for the blessings that Allah bestowed upon Iraq. We recently tried to find our international location in the international heritage Council in the 80s that we were left out of in the 80s and 90s of the last century. In addition to the increase of desertification and not finding the best use for the water of our rivers. This increases our resolve to work together not only on the climate change issue, but also to correct our track as a great country. We continued our ratification for all the related agreements and conventions, and the recent one is the Paris Convention that we ratified in the 21st of February 2021. We also draw policies that go in line with this, like our policies to stop burning the accompanying gas that will stop for good in 2025. And we are working on providing a budget of $3 billion every year in order to replace all of the liquid oil and gas that is used in our electricity generation plants in order to work with natural gas, and work also in parallel in order to improve our efforts by pumping huge investments in the new fields. We also plan in Iraq to reduce methane emissions in order to be in line with the United Nations requirements in Glasgow next month regarding climate change, and we started contracting to establish solar energy plants with the biggest companies in the world in order to move to new energy and to enable electricity using solar panels, not only fossil fuels. We also plan on having 10 gigawatt in order to meet our requirements and to achieve 12 gigawatts of solar energy in the coming 10 years in order to meet the shortage in the future production. Your Majesties, Your Highnesses, Excellencies, it is no secret that the annual budget of Iraq depends on the exports of oil, and for Iraq, this was never like this. We used to have a budget since the establishment of Iraq until recently, and we can remember that it depended on our agricultural exports. At that time, we were a main contributor to what is known now as the food security of our region. Whether we like it or not, the possibility of depending only on oil will not last forever, because the international economy is changing, and this will be a burden, a special burden on our oil countries. This is something that we admit from the beginning, and the Climate Convention calls for parties and especially industrial countries to take the necessary measures in order to achieve the requirements of the convention regarding the policies of funding, securing transfer of knowledge and technologies, especially for countries depending much and heavily on different fossil fuel energies, products, and the dense energy solutions. In my opinion, this summit is in line with this context, and we welcome it because of the expected positive outcomes on the social, economical, and developmental aspects. And we would like to congratulate you and thank you for calling for this initiative, and we look forward to what we are going to have in terms of procedures and policies. And as previously, we will always be ready to work with you in order to overcome the climate change and to prevent it from negatively impacting our environment and economies. I'd like to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia again for allowing us to be here, opening the room for regional cooperation in this vital role. Thank you very much, and peace be upon you all.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Saad bin Sharid Al-Kaabi, Ministry of Energy Affairs in Qatar. In the name of Allah, most merciful and submission to Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, Peace be upon you all. First of all, I would like to express my deep thanks and gratitude to His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdul Aziz Al Saud. May Allah protect him for his kind invitation to participate in this summit. And I appreciate the efforts of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia under the leadership of the custodian of the two holy mosques and its kindness to launch this initiative. We hope it would be a great leap in common work in the environment. The climate change has its ramifications on different aspects of life today. And no doubt this summit expressed the consensus of the international community to challenge this phenomena. Brothers and sisters, distinguished guests, the Middle East Green Initiative is a great opportunity to coordinate regional and international efforts to achieve a number of objectives, at the top of which is the diversification and the protection of vegetation cover and to fight desertation and to combat this phenomena. In this regard, I would like to refer that the environmental protection is a core pillar of Vision 2030, and in this year, our country signed the framework agreement of United Nations in alignment with the ambitious and leading role of Qatar that try to achieve in handling climate change and enhancing sustainable development based on our commitment of international cooperation to address this phenomena. We have prepared a national strategy, including 35 initiatives for the reduction of carbon emission, and including different sectors of water, transport, construction, industry, farming, education, and scientific research. And the government has a number of packages for financing and pricing carbon in partnership with the USA and France, and the climate summit which held last year. And this track is one of the most important tracks taken by the government of Qatar. In the framework of support of this initiative, we are fully committed to plant a million tree by the World Cup 2022. We are proud that this the first champion free of carbon, and we have initiative to plant 10 million trees by 2030. In conclusion, we hope that this initiative will achieve its desired results and goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And now the speech is for His Excellency Lord Griston, the Minister of Investment at the United Kingdom.
Your Royal Highness, Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm making this statement on behalf of the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Boris Johnson, as his personal representative. My apologies that I could not attend this important meeting in person. I would like to offer my thanks to His Royal Highness Mohammed bin Salman for his leadership on this critical issue, 6 days ahead of a key moment for humanity. At COP26, we face a momentous decision. Will we finally acknowledge the undeniable damage that our actions are causing the planet and take the necessary steps to limit the rise in temperature to 1.5 degrees? Or will we continue down the path of global warming? The Middle East and the countries represented here today have a critical role to play. This is a region rich in history, the birthplace of the alphabet, algebra, coffee, the wheel, and much of our civilization. But for many, the region has become most synonymous with fossil fuels. There is now a chance for a new chapter in the great history of your region. A decade ago, such a meeting on climate change and the commitment you are all making would have been unthinkable. It shows the huge progress that has been made in a short amount of time. However, we must go further and faster if we are to limit the increase in global temperature and take the necessary action to protect people and nature from the effects of climate change. To hit that vital 1.5-degree target, our scientists say that by the middle of this century, the carbon we produce and the amount that nature removes from the atmosphere should be in balance. We are already, all of us, feeling the impact of the changes in our climate in different ways. The last decade was the hottest ever recorded. As the launch of the Saudi Green Initiative highlighted, dust storms in the kingdom already cost this economy billions each year. If we do not act now, the science tells us these effects will become more frequent and more brutal. As the Crown Prince recognized when launching these initiatives, it is a false choice between growing the economy and protecting the environment. There are huge opportunities to be seized from the transition to net zero. Climate action will enhance competitiveness, spark innovation, create huge investment opportunities, and create millions of high-quality jobs. At Glasgow, we will be seeking pledges and actions across 4 areas: coal, cars, cash, and trees. And this inaugural conference tackles the latter 2 head-on, cash and trees. 10 billion trees, to be precise, in Saudi Arabia, 50 billion total across the region. That, my friends, is a lot of trees. And I hope you will match that outstanding level of ambition across all areas where action is needed. I look forward to welcoming you to Glasgow for COP26 and to working side by side with you to do our duty for succeeding generations, to keep 1.5 degrees in reach and to pass on a greener and more prosperous world. Thank you for inviting the United Kingdom to address you today.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now I give the floor his Mr. Mahmoud Ali Youssef, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Your Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, Crown Prince, Deputy Prime Minister, and Minister of Defense in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Your Excellencies and distinguished guests, esteemed gathering, peace be upon you all. It's my pleasure and privilege on behalf of His Excellency the President Ismail Bergili, the President of Djibouti, that he was enabled to attend and to participate in this summit due to circumstances, to express my deep thanks and appreciation to the people and the leadership of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for their hospitality and for their kind invitation to participate in this huge gathering dedicated to the launching the initiative of Middle East Green Initiative. And I would like to express our welcome of this unique initiative, and we are fully ready to cooperate with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to achieve the desired results, brothers and sisters. In fact, this is a great opportunity to meet in Riyadh, the capital of initiatives, which take huge strides to be one of the most sustainable cities in the world. In fact, addressing these challenges, which do not recognize the international borders, we need to increase international cooperation and regional cooperation, and adopting sustainable approach. Conserving the ecosystems is considered a necessity to secure better life for humanity, and as it's known that the fate of humanity is closely related to ecological balance and food resources, included in these ecosystems, and any dysfunction in this regard negatively impact and what we see, illegal migration and object poverty, drive people to cross borders, seas as a result of, to large extent, to desertation and scarcity of water and the decline in fertile land. We express in this regard our optimism of this initiative, which give us a new hope and which prove the keenness and interest and attention of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia of its positive interaction and with the based on its leading role in this region and the world. Brothers and sisters, we affirm that this initiative will make huge impact and change in climate change and the protection of land and nature, and it would be a regional podium and platform that support the conservation of environment. No doubt, we face a lot of challenges in this region, spearheaded by desertation, scarcity of water, and air pollution because of greenhouse gases, and this is constitute increasing threats at different levels. Of course, this issue is considered a crucial one that we should pay attention and have common action to address such consequences, including illegal migration. Your Royal Highnesses, Djibouti is considered one of most impacted and affected of climate change and exposed to natural disaster. So we exert huge efforts despite its limited resources to preserve the ecological system. These efforts have a lot of programs to increase the scope of afforestation and the importance of diversity and a number of projects which aiming to enhance the use of renewable energy in alignment and harmony with the international practices to achieve sustainable development. And we are hopeful that we can achieve these goals in cooperation with the brothers and the related international organizations and to cope with the innovative initiatives like the Middle East Green Initiative. I would like to express my thanks and gratitude to His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud and to the government of Saudi Arabia for launching and sound preparation for this summit, praying to Allah, our God, for the best of luck and thank you all. Thank you, Your Excellency. Now give the floor to His Excellency Benito, Ministry of Mines and Energy in Brazil.
It's an honor to convey to you the following message from His Excellency, the President of the Federative Republic of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro. Your Royal Highness, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great satisfaction that I congratulate you for the Middle East Green Initiative Summit, led by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, together with countries that are close friends and partners of Brazil. The Saudi Green Initiative and the Middle East Green Summit demonstrate the solid commitment of the Kingdom and the region towards sustainable development and the global transition to a low-carbon future. It is certainly a strong message that is being sent by the region in the eve of COP26 in Glasgow. Brazil has one of the cleanest energy matrices in the world, and is also moving fast to becoming one of the largest oil producers and exporters by the end of this decade. We know that this balance is not only possible, but necessary. We see energy transitions as tremendous opportunities for new investments, industrial ventures, technological innovation, and the generation of high-quality jobs. It is the smartest way to change our economies and societies. We note the same determination from each one of the countries participating in the Middle East Green Summit, many of which have been pushing forward impressive modernization efforts with a clear commitment to sustainable development. I wish you success in this endeavor. Rest assured that Brazil remains committed to deepening the ties of friendship and cooperation with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and our brotherly countries in the Middle East. Thank you.
شكرا عليكم. والآن أعطي الكلمة.
See, now I give the floor to Yasmin Fuad, the Minister of Environment in Arab Republic of Egypt.
سمو الأمير محمد ابن سلمان ابن عبد العزيز صاحب السمو الملكي، السادة أصحاب المعالي والسمو، رؤساء الحكومات ورؤساء الوفود. بداية أود أن أنقل تحيات فخامة الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي إلى شقيقه خادم الحرمين الشريفين الملك سلمان ابن عبد العزيز، وإلى سمو ولي عهده الأمير محمد بن سلمان، متمنياً دوام التقدم والتوفيق للمملكة وشعبها وقيادتها، وكذلك إشادة فخامته بمبادرة الشرق الأوسط الأخضر التي من شأنها أن تساهم في استدامة موارد للأجيال
Middle East Green Initiative that will enable our future generations to have a better future in which critical time in which we have suffering in the relation between humans and planet and the different effects of both parties of this relation. Achieving green growth happens through sustainable financing, policies, and partnerships between different parties in our societies, and this is the only solution to protect life on this planet. And we will tackle this. I will tackle this at the end of my speech. Your Highnesses, Excellencies, dear attendees, Egypt is one of the countries that has real directions to achieve sustainable development based on many mechanisms, whether institutional mechanisms, financing mechanisms, and other mechanisms, starting with the strategy that we started preparing, comprehensive one like 2030 vision of Egypt that takes in consideration the different economic and social environmental aspects, in addition to the strategies of the different sectors like the integrated sector of renewable energy for the year 2035, and also 2035, and the strategies of the low carbon development that was finalized, and also finally within the COVID pandemic, the green recovery strategy. Before all of this, and because we are aware of the impacts of the climate change, we finalized our national strategy for climate change for 2050, in which we intend to launch in the next COP26 in Glasgow. This includes different fields of adaptation and reduction and mitigation. Strategies will not be enough to solve the problem. So the Egyptian government started estimating the budget within the COVID-19 pandemic, and we provided a guide for the standards of environmental sustainability to be the guidelines for all governmental policies. And in the year 2021-2022, we reached 691 green projects with a budget of 447 billion Egyptian pounds on 14 levels. And this is considered 15% of the governmental investments in Egypt. And we raised our bar in order to reach 30% of the governmental projects to be green by the year 2024. And we will raise the bar even further to reach 100% of our governmental projects to be green by 2030. In order to reach that, we need to change the way we plan, design, monitor, and control all of these projects. But we need to raise the bar, but we also need to raise the funding. Funding for environment and for the climate as provided by some sister countries. The governmental work is not enough, that alone. So we started the governmental bonds by $750 million in order to focus on the climate change projects, focusing on the transportation and sewage projects. We work and we strive to change the supporting climate, not only for the private sector, but also for the banking sector by the central bank taking consideration and adopting the sustainable rules that will be provided in Glasgow in the COP26. Dear attendees, we support the MGI summit that will help for creating more integration between the regional countries that have different challenges, but have different circumstances, but similar challenges. This kind of integration requires two things. First, to have a real platform for the private sector for the Middle Eastern region to expedite the frequency of the projects and success stories for the technologies of low carbon, and Egypt is more than willing to push this forward through the National Council of Ministers that we preside in the current council. But this is not only the problem. Climate change is not the only problem. We have different kinds of problems and they are interrelated. The President of Egypt launched the Integrity Initiative between climate change and desertification and other problems because it is very important for our region. And in conclusion, I'd like to express my wishing for the success of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in this first version of MGI Summit and confirm that we will support going forward in this initiative and exert more efforts this year and the next year in order to, in which we aspire to organize the 27th COP climate meeting in order to achieve solutions for our sons and daughters, for our children and future generations. Thank you for listening and peace be upon you all. Thank you, Your Excellency. Now the speech is for His Excellency, Mr. Riyadh Al-Maliki, the Minister of Foreign Affairs for the State of Palestine. Your Royal Highness, Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Your Highnesses, Excellencies, I'd like to communicate the greetings of the President of the State of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas, for the cousin of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdul Aziz, and the Crown Prince, His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and the organizers of this pioneering initiative that will help transform our region, if successful, into new horizons, not only on the level of environment, but also on the level of life and human sustainability. This initiative reflects a wise vision and high responsibility and wise leadership beyond our limits in order to achieve, by the leadership of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, to help our region revive its environment in order to be able to breathe healthier, to eat better, and to live better. The climate change and the accompanying environmental impacts that touched all of our lives and our future urges us and poses itself on the international agenda, urging all of us in order to prioritize it and to provide our abilities and capabilities in order to be able to face these challenges in a joint manner. Therefore, this initiative comes with the accompanying required initiatives and capabilities to allow us to be a part of these efforts. And by the leadership of Saudi Arabia, our region will be an example to be followed and a good example to be followed by the whole world. After having the Middle East as a title for disasters, an example for destruction. It will be an example for this good initiative. His Royal Highness Mohammed bin Salman's initiative will change this reality and will make our Middle East taking the initiative for the international efforts in protecting our environment, climate, and to mitigate the negative impacts of climate change. His Royal Highness announced the intention to plant billions of trees in the Middle East region. The occupation state of Israel keeps cutting fruitful trees and burning fruitful trees in Palestine, destructing our agriculture crops, destructing our lands, and taking over our Palestinian lands, defying all of the international values and policies and resolutions. We are meeting here today to confirm that we want to plant trees while Israel, the occupation state, is taking them off of the ground, of the soil, cutting them. As for electricity by solar energy, it is also hindered by and fought by the occupation state of Israel to prevent Palestine from having independence of energy. This requires international protection, not only facing the crimes of Israel against humans of Palestine, but against the Palestinian trees and Palestinian energy as well. Despite all of this, the state of Palestine is happy and glad to be with you here in this historical event, and we commit to be a main contributor to all of the initiatives that were announced by His Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and not only on behalf of Saudi Arabia, but on behalf of all of us. All success for this initiative, and thank you for inviting Palestine to be here in this summit. Thank you, Your Excellency. Now the speeches for His Excellency, Mr. Soleimani Said Jafu, Minister of the State of the President's Deputy's Office of the United Republic of Tanzania.
Welcome, Your Excellency, please.
Okay, thank you.
Shukran.
Your Highnesses, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, Deputy Prime Minister of the Royal Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. On behalf of the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, it's indeed a great honor for me to bring a greetings and salutation from people of the United Republic of Tanzania in this important event. I would like to express my sincere gratitude and thanks to Your Highness, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, Deputy Prime Minister of the Royal Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, for inviting the President of the United Republic of Tanzania to this important event for launching the Middle East Green Initiative. Your Highness and Excellencies, a green economy is an economy that integrates the three pillars of economic growth, social welfare, and environmental sustainability. It's the economy that pursues a low carbon, resource efficient, and social inclusive pathway. It's the best way forward for sustainable economic development, which put on table environmental conservation agenda. This sends the best signal for every country in the world to perceive and act the same. The initiative is really commendable for sustainable development. I therefore congratulate the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Middle East government for this important initiative. Your Highness and Excellencies, today I have learned that the MGIs is designed not only to push forward the effort of conserving the environment in the Middle East, but also brought together the decision maker from government, private sectors, and financial institutions to plan and implement together the Green Initiative for Sustainable Economic Development. This chemist of high critical mass of personalities give everyone an opportunity to network, sharing experience and success story on the concept of green economy and how to scale it up. Your Highnesses and Princes and Excellencies, we are Tanzanians. Once again, thank you for being invited in this important event. For ages, our government has been trying to do much effort to achieve sustainable development. But our presence here in this event gives us a great opportunity to enrich and sharpen our knowledge on how to take forward the Green Economy Initiative agenda in our country and Africa region. It's about the ability to moderate, mediate, and use wisely the available resources for poverty reduction. It's about a vibrant community which can enjoy a clean environment, who can quickly and safely reach working place and come back home, safely and energetic. It's about improving the design of our cities to become enablers for growth and development. It's about using technology to overcome multiple challenges to include the solution towards strategic sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, currently Tanzania is running toward achieving a green economy. The Green Economy Agenda is integrating Tanzania Development Vision 2025 and the 5-year Development Plan 2021-22 to 2025-26. To implement the green economy as a part of National Development Network framework, the United Republic of Tanzania is implementing a number of projects which contribute on a green economy. Tanzania has recently increased significantly investment in renewable energy by constructing $3 million Julius Nyerere hydropower project, which will generate 2,115 megawatts of electricity and increase the contribution of renewable energy in the national energy mix by more than 4 times, making the largest portion of energy mix in the country. We are transforming our transport system to more efficient system, which reduces greenhouse gases emission by introducing a rapid bus transport system in the rest of the city and conducting $7.5 billion electrified standard gauge railway for about 1,457 kilometers, connecting the Eastern Port to neighboring landlocked country of Rwanda and Burundi. Moreover, in the biodiversity and environmental conservation, Tanzania has set more than 48.1 million hectares of forests which provide a global service to carbon sequestration. Tanzania has also reserved about 32% of the total range area under conservation, which include widely known wildlife conservation area of Serengeti, Ngorongoro, and Ruaha National Park. In addition, in the last 2 decades, Tanzania has been undertaking special initiatives to protect the nature of Mount Kilimanjaro and conducting 3 planting campaigns across the country, whereas a total of 276 million trees are planted annually through local government authorities. Your Highness and Excellencies, as we are heading toward COP26, Tanzania, through its NDCs, plan to reduce 30 to 35% of greenhouse gases emission by 2030 in order to contribute to global goal of limiting and increasing global temperature to 1.5 degrees centigrade. This is the one avenue which Tanzania and the Middle East can cooperate together, achieving green economy. We therefore looking forward to furthering this cooperation between Tanzania and the Middle East so that the people, including the future generation, can benefit from green economy initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, as the world facing COVID-19 pandemic, which threatens the global economy, we humbly ask all international community to continue collaborating and holding our hands together against COVID-19 for global benefits. Your Highness and Excellencies, before ending my few remarks, I thank you for your warm hospitality and a humble invitation in this event. It's my hope that we will continue to cooperate during implementation of this initiative for mutual benefit. The United Republic of Tanzania and Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan give assurance to the leaders, the people of Saudi Arabia and the people in the Middle East region that your agenda is our agenda, your friends is our friends, and your initiative is our initiative. You are not alone. Let's sail together, work together, enjoy together the lower hanging fruits of the green initiative economy. Once again, I take this opportunity to welcome you all, especially visiting our amazing protected and conservative Serengeti National Park, Ngorongoro, Ruaha, Nyerere National Park, and Mount Kilimanjaro, and not forgetting the Spice Island of Zanzibar. I thank you for your kind attention. Jazakallahu khaira, asanteni sana.
شكرا معاليكم. والآن الكلمة للسيد مانيلو دي ستيفانو وكيل وزارة الدولة للشؤون الخارجية والتعاون الدولي في الجمهورية الإيطالية، فليتفضل.
Thank you so much. Dignitaries, distinguished guests, let me start by congratulating the organizers for this very timely event. It is an honor for me to be here today with you on behalf of Prime Minister of the Italian Republic, His Excellency Mario Draghi, and my Minister of Foreign Affairs, Luigi Di Maio. We are in an extraordinary time in which we see converging economic, health, and climate crisis. We are facing multiple challenges that we can no longer ignore. As you know, 2021 represents a key year in the fight against climate change. Getting together to find effective solutions, sharing best practices, and catalyzing our efforts is the best possible way to tackle this threat and make a lasting global impact. The decade of action has just started, a long but irreversible journey to a net zero emissions future of mid-century. Italy, as 2021 G20 presidency and co-presidency of the COP26, is working strenuously to place the clean energy transition at the center of the political agenda. We are particularly grateful to Saudi Arabia as a member of the G20 Troika for the support and joint efforts made in order to reach a strong and clear consensus in the communiqué, which was adopted at the Energy and Climate Ministerial meeting in July. Traditional fossil fuels still play a significant role in the energy mix of many countries. A profound shift towards clean energy technologies is necessary in order to achieve the objectives set out in the Agenda 2030 on sustainable development and in the Paris Agreement on climate change. Reducing emissions is crucial. According to the most accredited studies of the main international energy organizations, we need to foster more energy production from clean sources, which will also be a factor of economic growth and resiliency. Promoting innovative technologies, such as offshore renewables, enhancing the research and production of green hydrogen, developing modern bioenergy are among the essential elements. Energy efficiency improvement also plays a key role. Smart, sustainable, and resilient cities based on nature-based solutions and on the urban ecosystem approach are equally part of the equation. Coherently, urgent action is needed in order to phase out unabated coal power generation. To reach these goals, we need to join our hands, promoting international cooperation and fostering energy partnerships. In this regard, multilateral fora represent crucial opportunities to develop common strategies. Distinguished guests, considering current and future climate risks throughout the investments agenda is remarkably important as well. Public finance initiatives can accelerate the ecological transition also by mobilizing private capitals. Therefore, a facilitated cooperation between the public and the private sector, together with a more extensive use of fiscal policy instruments, would be key to boost investments in green and innovative technologies. In this context, central banks can be strong allies to ramp up clean energy investments, while multilateral development banks play a key role in order to mobilize capitals towards developing countries. We should also look ahead to redefine international relations between producing and consuming countries, adjusting them to the new energy reality which is steadily taking place. Italy is already committed to develop new forms of bilateral cooperation in the field of renewables, hydrogen, efficiency infrastructures, electrifications, and abatement of emissions from fossil fuels. In such a way, we aim to relaunch our strategic collaboration so to generate mutual benefits by fostering new energy sources and increasing incomes and skilled employment. The current recovery from COVID-19 has witnessed too little investments into sustainable energy, adding to the rebound in CO2 emissions. International Energy Agency analysis shows that governments around the world have mobilized $16 trillion USD in recovery packages up to now, with only 2% of this earmarked for cleaner and more resilient energy systems. Italy is actually leading by virtuous examples. Almost 70 billion euro have been allocated from the Green Revolution and the ecological transition in our National Recovery and Resilience Plan. The focus is on the complete decarbonization of our system, for example, climate neutrality by 2050, and on strengthening the adoption of circular economy solutions to protect nature and biodiversity. Moreover, Italian companies and banks have been among the first ones to issue green bonds and ESG-indexed loans. As part of the partnership with the UK for COP26, Italy hosted the event Youth for Climate Driving Ambition, dedicated to the young generation, followed by the important negotiation forum of the pre-COP, both in Milan. We are dedicated to officially involve young people for the first time within the COP framework, listening to their ideas and proposals, which have become part of the negotiation themselves. Overall, they emphasize the importance of their involvement in the climate discussion at all levels. They have asked us to focus on transition, recovery, education, and resiliency mechanisms. They also called for the phase-out of fossil fuel industry by 2030 and for governments to privates to stop financing it. Youth for Climate was held back-to-back with the pre-COP negotiations. On this occasion, a consensus emerged from the 50 ministers in order to increase the commitment to decarbonization. The shift to substantial investments in renewable sources was reaffirmed as well. Finance issues have been discussed intensively at the pre-COP meeting, both specifically and horizontally. All parties have pointed out that the delivery of the $100 billion by 2025 is an issue of trust that has to be addressed swiftly by developed countries in order to help developing countries to fulfill the climate targets. Increased, accessible, and predictable financial resources have been called for in order to unlock ambitions in Glasgow. In conclusion, dear friends, as we rebuild in the aftermath of the pandemic, we need to capitalize on this particular momentum, leveraging on COVID-19 recovery to align investment flows with the Paris Agreement's goals. Such an alignment, both at public and private, national and international levels, can create more opportunities for businesses and the investor, and enhancing emerging growth, employment, competitiveness, and innovation. We can demonstrate that an economic recovery and ambitious climate actions are compatible, and Italy, with its geographical strategic position at the center of the Mediterranean, can play a pivotal role to connect Europe, the Middle East, and Africa into a new green energy net. We are ready to play our part together with you all. I thank you.
Thank you. Now, the speech is for His Excellency Ahmed Abul Ghaid, Secretary General of the Arab League. And Your Excellency, would you like to provide your presentation at the podium, please? Your speech.
صاحب السمو الملكي
Your Excellency, Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, Crown Prince, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Defense of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Your Excellency, Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Your Majesties, Your Highnesses, Excellencies, dear ladies and gentlemen, it is a source of honor and pleasure to be invited to participate today in the Middle East Green Initiative Summit that reflects with sincerity what this precious country has in terms of caring for climate and sustainable development issues in the region. Launching this summit and this initiative that is an integral part of the 2030 vision of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia reflects the great importance that it finds for the agenda of environment and limitation of climate change as one milestone for the achievement of sustainability and stability in the Kingdom and the region. The positive impacts of this initiative will reach the whole world. Planting 50 billion trees will create a new breathing lung, natural breathing lung in this area that suffered for thousands of years of dryness and droughts. This will created a big impact on the climate change scene in the world. It is no secret that most of our Arab countries is in the severe scarcity of water or water poverty segment, and our region is one of the biggest regions in the world to be impacted by climate change and its implications like increasing of temperature, droughts, desertification, in addition to other climate phenomena that are excessive. Studies confirm that the total areas of desertified and areas in danger of desertification in the Arab world is 86% of the total area of the region. And it is estimated that the area of the lands degrading is to be 60%. 26% of them are severely degraded. And this is due to different factors. One of them is the disappearance of the plant coverage, the degradation of the soil, the degradation of biodiversity and ecological systems. The United Nations Convention against desertification provided a strategic plan in 2007 that was finalized in 2018. This plan adopted having or creating an international partnership to stop desertification under a new concept, which is the transformation of the degradation of soils within the 17 SDGs. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's initiative aims at one of its goals to plant 10 billion trees within Saudi Arabia in the next few decades, which is equal to the restoration of 40 million hectares of degrading land. Doing that will help double the food coverage in the kingdom by 12 times. This is a huge number and will represent a contribution of the kingdom by more than 4% of the international initiative for the limitation of the degradation of lands and 1% of the international 1 trillion trees initiative goal. This exceptional project intersects with the preservance and resistance of the neighboring countries of national projects for combating degradation. And here I mention, for example, the Green Belt for the Bigger Cairo initiative and the Jordan Replanting Trees initiative, in addition to other projects. This project will be a solid ground for regional successful integration and participation and cooperation and motivation for further projects and initiatives. This issues of climate change and desertification is of great importance for all Arab governments, and we have discussed it seriously within the Arab Ministers' Council of Ministers of Environment that Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is a main contributor to. The Council was made knowledgeable in the 14th of this month of the impacts and the intentions of the initiative, and the Council welcomed the initiative because of its positive role in fighting climate change and desertification. In conclusion, we may have lost some fights regarding the climate change that has increasing impacts, but we did not lose the war. We will not give up, and we hope that our efforts that we are exerting today will be in line with the responsibility in order to help next generations avoid the economic and social and environmental implications that are severe. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Your Excellency. Now the speeches for His Excellency Dr. Yusuf bin Ahmed Al Uthaymeen, Secretary General of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Would you like, Your Excellency, to provide your speech at the podium? In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Your Royal Highness, Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz, Crown Prince, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Defense of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Your Royal Highness, Prince Faisal bin Farhan bin Abdullah Al Saud, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Your Majesties, Your Highnesses, Excellencies, dear guests of this conference, dear ladies and gentlemen, peace and mercy of God be upon you all. This is an international critical event, especially that it studies and researches the map of the Saudi Green Initiative and the Middle East Green Initiative for the year 2021. These initiatives that were announced by His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz, Crown Prince, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Defense of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. May Allah protect him. Regarding the Saudi Green Initiative and the Middle East Green Initiative, this is a practical message that is strong to be communicated to the whole world that aims at contributing to the efforts of combating climate change by increasing the plant coverage and reduction of carbon emissions, fighting desertification, and the increasing of the degradation of lands and the increase of temperature in the Middle East countries. So that's why these initiatives were supported by the international organizations, especially that these initiatives are in line with the interests of the member countries of these organizations that puts environment and sustainable development issues in the beginning of their priorities. I'd like also to seize this opportunity to value the important and pioneering role of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, led by the Constantine of the two Holy Mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, and His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, Prince Mohammed bin Salman. May Allah protect them both for their continuous efforts that are valuable in order to enhance the pillars of Saudi Arabia to be based on strong, solid grounds, aiming at reform, development, reconnaissance, in line with the 2030 vision, renaissance in terms of the 2030 vision of the kingdom, in line with the international efforts of fighting different challenges facing the world, especially in the fields of environment and climate. Dear ladies and gentlemen, for us in the Islamic cooperation, in the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, we totally support such great initiatives because they are in line with the charter of our organization, calling for protecting and enhancing all different aspects related to environment for the benefit of the current and future generations. Taking care of environment is no longer a merely scientific effort or scientific advantage. It is a necessity, and it is necessary to exert all of our efforts to achieve sustainable, comprehensive development and economic welfare in the member countries. In the organization, we also value it also enhances the decisions from our organization and the Council of Arab Ministers, confirming that it is necessary to face social and economic challenges related to the environmental situation in the region and the world, in addition to increasing the levels of participation of clean energy and national reservoirs in order to participate in achieving sustainable development in the region and the world, enhancing the quality of life for our peoples. I'd like also to seize this opportunity to reconfirm the commitment of the Organization of Islamic Conference to work seriously and positively within the lines of MNG and SGI with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and national and international organizations and countries to achieve the outcomes and the objectives of this initiative. The Organization of Islamic Conference confirms that the initiative of His His Royal Highness the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia will be the main focus of the next 9th round of the Islamic World Ministers of Environment, as it can be a roadmap with clear milestones and ambition targets to enhance positively to increase the share of renewable energy, achieving the international objective of planting 1 trillion plants and replanting 200,000 million hectares of the degrading lands, with achieving the reduction of 2.5% of the emissions of CO2 internationally. Your Highnesses, Excellencies, the part regarding agriculture and land reclamation is very important to international organization in general and to Organization of Islamic Conference in specific, as the agriculture aspect in our member countries is very important and takes a lot of attention, especially for the less developing countries, because development in agriculture is an integral condition for the economic development, as it provides good quality of life and honorable life for a lot of people in our member countries that were bestowed with agriculture, different diverse agriculture resources, especially the lands, agricultural lands and water resources. We are in desperate need to use modern technologies in order to face different challenges. Your Highnesses, Excellencies, the environmental issues and the climate change is on top of the priorities of the world agenda, as it directly impacts our countries, and hence it is necessary to coordinate among countries in order to help and to treat the impacts or the implications of climate change and the degradation of environmental conditions in an effective way. Our interests call for us to preserve our environment in a multidisciplinary and multi-sector approach and a sustainable developmental approach, and to take in consideration a number of factors and variables in order to be able to face the environmental challenges that we are all facing today. We don't have to deal with the issues like, for example, the degradation of soil and the degradation of water resources and biodiversity and carbon emissions and the climate change only, but we also need to deal in an integrated way with different issues related to poverty and rural and urban developmental policies and priorities. This is why we consider that, and we think that His Royal Highness's vision in providing these initiatives came in the best time possible in order to achieve these objectives. In conclusion, allow me to again express the Organization of Islamic Cooperation's thankfulness and gratitude for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia organizing this MGI summit and the accompanying initiatives and activities that are unprecedented, especially through the Youth Green Initiative, providing an initiative and a platform for the youth to provide their visions regarding environment and governmental and climate change. And I'm confident that the summit will help enhance and identify the pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages of the MGI and SGI initiatives on the Middle East countries. These initiatives provide strategic solutions in order to overcome the challenges, the diverse challenges related to environment and sustainable development, which is very important given the closeness of the United Nations COP26 for climate change in Glasgow in next November, with the title of Unifying the World to Face Climate Change. I'd like to thank again on behalf of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation that we are all willing to participate in the efforts to achieve the objectives of these initiatives and the ambitious roadmap that will be developed based on the initiatives of SGI and MGI to enhance and improve the quality of life for our peoples with a spirit of true consolidation and solidarity. May Saudi Arabia and all of our planet be always green. Thank you and good evening and peace be upon you all. Thank you, Your Excellency, Your Excellencies, Your Highnesses, because of the green economy transformation is very important. Now we move to speeches from the international banks, our partners, to speak about their opinion and their vision of these partnerships before we continue our speeches. Now, Mr. Larry Fink, Chairman and CEO of BlackRock, United States of America, will deliver his speech.
Good afternoon, everyone. Your Royal Highness and Your Excellencies, it is an honor, a great honor, to play a role in today's conversations. With COP26 on the horizon, we are at a critical moment for tracking climate change. That's what I'm going to use my time to talk about this afternoon: how governments, financial service companies, and multilateral institutions must all work together if we are going to achieve a net zero world. In 2020, I wrote that climate risk is investment risk. I also anticipated a tectonic shift in capital. But even as I've been surprised by the scale and the pace of the reallocations of capital moving into more climate strategies, I've been overwhelmed. Investors know that climate change presents huge physical risk, and they are already anticipating the real effects on asset valuations, pricing, and how they're going to allocate capital in companies, but also allocating capital in countries. Climate change not only presents a significant challenge, but an enormous opportunity. Getting to net zero carbon emissions by 2050 is going to require a revolution in the production of everything we produce and a revolution in everything we consume. The process of creating fuel, food, and construction materials with all the needs that we have as humanity, it all has to be reinvented. And that's going to require a large amount of investment, a large amount of ingenuity, and a large amount of innovation. As an asset manager at the nexus between owners of capital and companies and assets we invest in on behalf of them, we see this playing out every day. Asset owners are looking for investment opportunities that will come from this historic transition to net zero. It is my belief that the next 1,000 unicorns, companies that have a market valuation over $1 billion, won't be a search engine, won't be a media company. They'll be businesses developing green hydrogen, and green agriculture, green steel, green cement. That is not to say that we are going to divest from hydrocarbons. In fact, it is essential that we work with playing a role in this solution. We are supportive of the hydrocarbon companies, and we believe they will be part of the solution of this green revolution, of this new green technology. Many of them are at the forefront of developing methods of carbon capture and storage, which will play a major role in removing the carbon emissions we will continue to produce. As we travel to the path of net zero, it's virtually important and throughout about everything we do in moving forward, we're on a journey to take us from the shades of dark brown, the medium brown, the light brown, the very light green. It is not going to be from green to brown to green. And the most important thing that affects how I think as we transform our economies, we must make sure that we don't leave anybody behind. It's important that this transition focuses on all of humanity, not just the parts of humanity that can afford the transition. Achieving a just transition will require a long-term planning on the parts of governments. And I want to underscore long-term planning on the parts of governments. As His Royal Highness Prince Abdulaziz highlighted before, the energy poverty risk must be addressed by thoughtful and realistic public policy. Otherwise, we risk a supply crisis that drives up the cost for consumers, for those who could least afford it. We are already seeing rising prices in many parts of the world, and the reality is that clean technologies will cost considerably more than those that emit greater amounts of greenhouse gases. The price differences is sometimes described as a green premium. For example, sustainable aviation fuel costs at least 140% more than kerosene. Rising oil prices will only mean greater dependency on coal in the emerging world. And we have to manage the supply and the demand curve more effectively than we've been doing the last 6 months. If we're going to bring down the green premium, we also need to get serious about attracting private capital for technology and for technology revolution. Approaches that fail to mobilize private capital to develop the scale and new technologies is not enough. In particular, we need to rethink how we're going to attract the necessary capital to facilitate the transition in the developing world. Emerging markets, excluding China, accounts for 34% of global emissions. Investments in low-carbon projects in emerging markets will need to be more than $1 trillion a year, more than 6 times the current rate of investments of about $150 billion a year. This is where I believe multilateral institutions like the IMF and the World Bank must play a critical role in getting us to where we need to be. But they need to act quickly. Time is running out. We know the effect of climate change will be catastrophic for savers and investors around the world if we don't act. Financial services companies, governments, and multilateral institutions all have a vital role to play in achieving a net zero. I commit my firm to be playing a role, and I hope all of you representing your countries play a role. We need to act. It is not about a conversation, it is about action. We need to be sure that we have a World Bank and an IMF that's playing a pivotal role in how they bring private capital to help the emerging world. Your Royal Highness and Your Excellencies, I truly believe that we can and must work together, public and private, to achieve these critical issues to bring us closer to a green and sustainable world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Larry. والآن أدعو السيد
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Rory Cohn, the head of HSBC, Noel Quinn.
Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies.
أصحاب السمو وأصحاب المعالي الضيوف الكرام، إنه شرف كبير لي أن أتحدث إليكم في هذه اللحظة المحورية لاقتصادنا العالمي وكذلك لكوكبنا. لاري قد سلط الضوء وشرح بالفعل الأهمية الحيوية للشراكة بين القطاعين العام والخاص، توظيف الاستثمارات اللازمة لتحقيق انتقالات إلى صفر انبعاثات كربون، وأنا أتفق من كل قلبي معه. سئلت أو طلب مني أن أتحدث عن التحديات وعن
that private sector finance. In the 156 years since HSBC has been founded, the industrial and commercial landscape of the world has changed dramatically many times. I personally have spent my 34 years at HSBC as a corporate banker, providing the finance necessary to the very businesses that contribute so much to your respective economies, and frankly, who will be so important to the implementation of the plans that you have talked about today. From my humble perspective, I believe we are about to see the next major industrial and commercial transformation over the next 10 to 15 years. Industries will need to adopt new technologies and business models that will allow them to become carbon neutral or carbon light. Entirely new industries will be emerging, and that will require a significant amount of investment, but will also create a huge economic opportunity for each of your economies. The sustainable finance market is already growing rapidly. In the first 9 months of 2021, green, social and sustainable bonds raised more than $777 billion. That's more than 60% higher than the same period last year. And we are actually on track this year for it to be the first $1 trillion year for green bonds. We've seen that reflected in our own business. This year alone, we have already helped our customers issue $170 billion of green bonds. With a broader range of structures and a greater variety of issuers than ever before. But the next phase of development will require more than just capital market activity. It will require a fundamental re-engineering of the commercial banking sector to support the activities of the corporates we serve. This transformation will present both opportunities and challenges. First, many of the new technologies and business models will be wholly unproven and carry a far higher risk of execution and financing risk. Second, the incremental capital investment cost of these projects will stretch the fiscal positions of many countries, particularly those that will be the primary counterparties for offtake agreements of energy. Third, there is significant NGO and activist pressure on the private sector banks that operate within your markets for them to stop funding the existing carbon-heavy businesses, which, if that happens, would negatively impact the very cash flows that exist today that are necessary to invest in the new technologies. Finally, the concept of transition is often spoken about. But for many businesses, there is a lack of definition and transparency as to what that actually means for their business plans. So how do we address those issues? And I will make 5 simple suggestions, some of which Larry has already covered. Private sector commercial banks should proactively adopt a strategy of financing the transition rather than a strategy of withdrawal. The banking sector needs to continue to provide finance to those carbon-heavy corporates that have a detailed plan to achieve a just transition. A blended finance proposition should be developed between public sector institutions and private sector organizations to address those risk categories that are almost impossible for the private sector to assess and mitigate, essentially using credit enhancement structures to crowd in private sector funding. Fourth, corporates should be encouraged to publish detailed transition plans that will allow the private sector finance providers to understand and assess the opportunity and risk of those plans. we need to clarify on what is meant by sustainable investment if we are to crowd in private sector funding. And finally, government should consider sending strong and clear policy demand signals in key market segments that help create the conditions for investment. I wish to expand on one point. First, that point is the definition of sustainable investment. There is much confusion in the marketplace today. As an industry, we are currently working together to create a trusted label for infrastructure projects to give investors confidence that projects they're investing in are truly sustainable. That industry initiative is called Fast Infra and will be launched at COP26. Critically, it also provides a platform to connect sustainable projects with private sector investors. That is a practical way to realize the potential for sustainable growth. Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, the financial sector wants to play a leading role in the transition to net zero. I hope the discussions today will mark another important step towards a successful transition and the long-term prosperity and sustainability of this dynamic region. Thank you.
Thank you. والآن أعطي الكلمة للسيد أندريا ستيفيس شريك.
Now the speech for Mr. Andrea Esteves. He's a senior partner at BTG Pactual, the Federative Republic of Brazil.
Your Highness, Your Excellence, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor being here in the Middle East Green Initiative with all of you debating such an important issue for our planet. My country, Brazil, has the largest forest surface in the world, has the cleanest energy matrix in the G20, and has a very vibrant agricultural sector, which makes it the largest exporter of food, helping to feed many regions in the world. It's a privilege, but also it comes with enormous responsibility. We have been facing the same challenge of all of our nations here in terms of managing the transition to a more sustainable planet. But beyond that, we have a specific challenge, an additional responsibility, which is preserve our forests, preserve our trees. They are many, but we need to take care of them. And it's not easy. Despite many initiatives of our government has been consistently challenged to keep our forests preserved. And it's quite important to preserve the ecosystem of our planets. So my firm, BTG Pactual, is the largest investment bank and independent asset manager in the region. We took a very important initiative and launched the Restoration Fund. In partnership with Conservation International, one of the largest environmental NGOs, we expect to promote one of the largest ever restoration initiatives in the planet. So we expect to raise around $3 billion and with an exclusive function of buying degraded areas and restore its forests. Half of that of the native forests, the other half of that of commercial forests. These commercial forests will come with eventual wood processing facilities, focus on long-term wood products like furniture and hardwood. The planting, monitoring, and maintenance of these forests will be made by the local communities. we expect to achieve about 500,000 hectares of restoration, which makes this project the largest private sector-driven restoration project in the world. Also, we expect to combine good results with promoting the highest level of carbon offsetting carbon certificates based on its social and climate and economic impact. We expect with this initiative should be one of the key contributions that we can make in our country and our region. Once again, Your Highness, Your Excellency, congratulations for the leadership in such an important topic here. Thank you very much.
The speech now is for Her Excellency Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Your Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. This has been a very useful and timely conversation with only a few days to go to the G20 summit in Rome, and immediately after that, the COP26 in Glasgow. Let me first congratulate all the leaders here for the successful launch of the Middle East Green Initiative, and in particular the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for spearheading this effort and for hosting us today. Your Royal Highness, you have decided to design the Middle East Green Initiative so that it would not only help reduce emissions from the oil and gas industry in the region, but it would also create new carbon sinks and help restore and protect vast swaths of land through afforestation. The ambitious plan to plant 50 billion trees is truly impressive and will have many co-benefits for people. I also want to congratulate the leadership of Saudi Arabia for the announcement made on Saturday that the kingdom will reach net zero emissions by 2060. This is an enormous step in the right direction. It is a strategic decision for the kingdom, and I'm pleased to see that others in the region, such as the United Arab Emirates, have also moved in the same direction. Mostly what I heard today is political commitment and a strategic vision to transition the region's economies away from an unsustainable development model based on commodity exports to a new development model in better harmony with nature and fit for the challenges of the 21st century. It is now clear that the global economy is irreversibly heading towards a deep decarbonization of all sectors, from energy to manufacturing, transport, and food systems. The market signals and the science are very clear. The Secretary General has raised the alarm and has called the latest IPCC report a code red for humanity. He has warned that if we fail to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels, we will condemn our children to a pretty hellish future. We need to urgently peak, reduce, and stabilize global greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050. And this means cutting global emissions by 45% compared to 2010 levels by 2030. Your Royal Highness, Excellencies, entire communities are already being hurt by climate impacts all over the world. So I would humbly suggest that we begin to dig deep and transition from a brown to a green economy with a sense of urgency and less shades of brown and green. The Middle East and North Africa region is particularly vulnerable to climate impacts and exposed to a range of systemic risks such as water stress, desertification, food insecurity, forced displacement, and extreme heat waves, just to name a few. If no action is taken, this region will face 200 days of extreme heat and temperatures of 50 degrees Celsius every year by the end of the century. But the region also has incredible assets to leverage, which could make it a front-runner for a post-carbon, resilient and inclusive economy. Your meeting is a testimony to this. Your Royal Highness, Excellencies, in our fight against climate change, failure is a choice, just as climate change was a man-made one. It is not a certainty. We must act fast and ensure that the transition to net zero is for all people in all regions, especially for those dependent on revenues from oil and gas. For these countries, the just transition away from fossil fuels will undoubtedly be a challenge of epic proportions, requiring scaled-up and targeted investments to support those people who will be temporarily impacted. But these investments could yield innumerable benefits in the long term, while a mismanaged energy transition would all but ensure that the world descends into a state of greater inequality, poverty, and instability. Solidarity and fairness are core principles that underpin the multilateral regime, and that is why I am pleased to see the Middle East Green Initiative is a regional and a cooperative approach to climate action. It is also why I would urge you to come to COP26, prepared to make it not only a success, but a real turning point to achieve a green, resilient, and just transition. Let me make a few humble suggestions. First, all countries must submit revised and updated NDCs that bring us closer to our collective emission reduction goal, a 45% cut by 2030 compared to 2010 and net zero by 2050 globally. Updated NDCs must capture the highest level of ambition possible, and then some. And they should be revised every year if necessary until we close the emissions gap. G20 countries, who are responsible for up to 80% of the global emissions, must lead by example. It is a collective effort. We welcome the submission of the new NDC from Saudi Arabia. The 2030 targets are as important as the longer-term goals. Second, adaptation must be recognized and treated both as a local and a global priority. It is why we are asking all donors to allocate at least 50% of their climate finance to adaptation. Quite frankly, we are at pain to understand why public sector and multilateral development banks have not already taken these steps. As shareholders of multilateral, regional, and national development banks and funds, you can instruct your representatives at the boards for these institutions to work towards 50% of climate finance and adaptation. Third, on finance, the full operationalization of the Article 2.1c the Paris Agreement requires that all public and private finance flows towards investments are aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement. Private finance will bring investments to scale, as public finance alone would not be enough. However, private finance needs to reach markets and constituencies that are not always on their radar: least developed countries, small developing islands, and in general, vulnerable communities. And private finance institutions, like everyone else, need to pass the credibility test. This means robust taxonomies and standards, mandatory climate risk disclosure, and more transparency across the board to ensuring that all financial flows contribute to keeping the 1.5 degrees Celsius degree within reach. Here, too, credibility will be clear. Finally, private finance actors must participate in the G20's common framework for debt treatment to ensure that developing countries can maintain sustainable levels of debt without being asked to make impossible trade-offs, choiceless choices, to the detriment of their people and our home, the planet. On public finance, we need to significantly scale up grant-based funding and align funds that already exist with sustainability goals. We need more efficient and faster access to climate finance, especially for the most vulnerable nations. This means getting multilateral institutions to cut the considerable amount of red tape that is often required to get access to their funding. It also means lowering eligibility criteria for ODA for the least developed countries and small islands, something we should all ask the OECD to engage work on. Finally, developed countries need to meet and exceed the 100 billion at the bare minimum and start looking ahead at the post-2025 finance goal. I'm urging all of us to give clear guidance to delegations at COP26 to seek compromise, to reach consensus on these and other pending issues. And I thank you for your path-breaking work on the Middle East Green Initiative. Your leadership is needed more than ever at this historic juncture. Shukran jazilan.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now the speech is for His Excellency Mr. Bombadil Yadav, Union Cabinet Minister of Environment and Forest and Climate Envoy of the Republic of India.
And distinguished guests, at the outset, I would like to thank Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and especially His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman for taking the lead in organizing Middle East Green Initiative Summit 2021. I am here to convey Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi's greeting and the best wishes for the ambitious launch of Middle East Green Initiative and Saudi Green Initiative that will motivate international consensus to deliver on the shared environmental commitments. India also fully appreciates the climate action which have taken by Saudi Arabia under the Saudi Green Initiative. The findings of recent IPCC report 2021 are a final wake-up call for humanity to save mankind from the Holocene extinction. It is now or never for taking concrete global action to address climate change. However, global action to combat the climate challenges associated with depreciation, degradation, and destruction of common environmental assets should be tackled on basis of 3 Rio Convention of 1992, namely the Convention on Biological Diversity, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. Stage of development level of per capita income, historical responsibility, equity, national circumstances and priorities, common but differentiated responsibility and respective capacities, along with the means of implementations, are paramount in any collective global action to address the contemporary challenges caused by climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. Green policies in India are seen in the context of sustainable development and inclusive economic growth, including poverty eradication. The government therefore endeavors to address all the 3 dimensions of sustainable development, social, economic, and environmental in a balanced manner. India has taken several proactive steps to mainstream the sustainable development goals into policies, schemes, and programs. Our sustainable development policies cover many sectors such as renewable energy, energy efficiency, sustainable mobility, sustainable habitat, and many others. Under the dynamic leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, India has already enhanced its renewable energy target from 175 gigawatt to 450 gigawatt by 2030. Other important steps are afforestation program, reforming transportation, cleaning up cities and rivers, etc. Leadership Group of Industry Transition, International Solar Alliance, and Coalition of Disaster Resilient Infrastructure are initiatives at the international level that India has been spearheading. At this summit, I urge countries which have not joined to consider joining this global initiative. However, efforts to avoid emission during the development process are also tied to the availability and level of international financing and technology transfer, since most of the developing countries still face complex development challenges. Even India's climate action have so far been largely financed from domestic resources. Maximum share of India's current climate finance comes from budgetary sources. A sustainable scaling up of the climate action plans would require greater resources. To augment the availability of assured targeted resources, India has initiated various steps, like at the national level for mobilizing financing for mitigation and adaptation respectively. These include National Adaptation Fund, carbon taxation, tax-free infrastructure bond for renewable energy projects, green bond, etc. In this direction, we expect COP26 to initiate process of setting up the long-term climate finance for post-2020. Global leadership is also required to ensure the new collective long-term finance goal. India believes that all countries should work together toward making COP a COP for delivery to concrete action on finance and technology transfer. In addressing the contemporary challenges, it is important to focus on solutions that can help us reach our goals with justice. The need of the hour is a global public partnership to harness technology, innovation, and finance to help developing countries in scaling up their effort to protect nature. Thank you.
شكرا معاليك. الآن أعطي الكلمة إلى السيد جون كيري مبعوث الرئاسي الخاص بالولايات المتحدة الأمريكية لشؤون المناخ.
John Kerry, Special President Envoy for Climate from the United States of America.
Your Royal Highness, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, distinguished participants. I don't have a speech as much as I have observations listening to everybody and coming here just a few days before we go to Glasgow and before we have the G20. I want to begin by thanking His Royal Highness for his leadership in stepping up to bring all of us together for the Middle East Green Initiative. And as I was sitting here looking at that, I couldn't help but think that just the fact of a Middle East Green Initiative is different. It's a reflection of the urgency of the moment. The Crown Prince of Kuwait began this conversation with a prayer, saying, thank God for making the earth for us. And it's interesting to note that every single of the three major Abrahamic religions each puts a responsibility on individuals for creation care, for protecting the earth that we were given. And I think you would all agree that if you look around the planet today, it's questionable whether or not we're doing enough. In that context, I want to thank Saudi Arabia's presentation of an updated NDC and a net zero goal, which is a major step forward since Paris. And it is critical, cannot be underestimated, to underscore what it means to have one of the world's largest fossil fuel producers step up at a moment when all countries need to step up. So I want to thank the team that has been put together in Saudi Arabia, led by His Royal Highness Abdulaziz, who has been a great partner in this endeavor as we think about the road to Glasgow and beyond. So let me put this, if I may, respectfully, into a context. I had the privilege of leading our negotiating team in Paris. I had the privilege of being at the very first meeting in 1992 in Brazil, in Rio, when this framework was created, and many meetings in between. In Paris, my friends, we agreed, all of us, that we would hold the Earth's temperature well below 2 degrees centigrade increase and strive to achieve 1.5. But then in 2018, the IPCC scientists came to us and said, wait a minute, we're not getting the job done. In fact, even if every country did what it had pledged to do in Paris, and we're not, we would still have an increase in the Earth's temperature of somewhere around 3+ to 3.7 degrees. That's the path we've been on. Until recently, when in 2018 the IPCC came along and said, you're not getting the job done. And
the fact is that they said 1.5 degrees is now what we need to focus on. So I acknowledge with humility that our country was away from this for several years. But now President Biden is back, and he has had a summit, which many of you took part in. And as a result of that and the diplomacy of the last months, we've had countries that have not necessarily been that consumed by this, not that serious, step up. Russia, Mexico, South Africa, Brazil, others. And there is clearly a movement now where people recognize the science and what is happening. And the scientists in 2018 said to us, you have 12 years within which you must make the most critical decisions and implement them in order to avoid the worst consequences of the climate crisis. That's the context within which we are meeting. And I would just say to everybody that this is not about politics. This is not about strategic balance of power. This is not about ideology. This is very simple. This is about science. It's about physics and mathematics. And those are telling us that we must accelerate, that we can still get the job done, but only if we make the key decisions and implement them over the course of these next few years. Now that's exciting, actually. And the science has said to us, you must reduce emissions by 45% in the next 10 years if you expect to meet net zero by 2050, if you want to keep the Earth's temperature to 1.5 degrees. That's the mandate. And we can do it. But my friends, we have to do better than, sort of process the next storm or the next extreme heat wave or the next flood or the next drought or watch the Arctic melt completely or the Antarctic. There are scientists today who tell me they fear we are already at the tipping point of the Arctic, the Antarctic, and the coral reefs. So I just say to this, after the summit in April, and with the work of the last months, we now have 65% of global GDP committed to pursue real plans to keep the Earth's temperature at 1.5 degrees. And we now have other countries that haven't heretofore raised their NDCs, raising their NDCs and stepping forward. So we can do this. But there are a couple of things I want to emphasize. This is the biggest market opportunity the world has ever known. It's the biggest market the world has ever known. It's the biggest transformation that has ever taken place on this planet since the Industrial Revolution, if we do it. And I think Larry Frank or somebody earlier said, this is opportunity. My friends, this is enormous economic opportunity. This biggest market is a market of 4.5 to 5 billion people today. But it's going to go up to 9 to 10 billion people in the next 30 years. It's already a multiple trillion-dollar market with these 4.5 to 5 billion users. So we know what we have to do. We have to transition. We've heard the word many times today. But this transition is not something to be scared of. It's something to be excited by. Larry talked about the unicorns. People are now, I see trillions of dollars already going into direct carbon capture, into alternative renewable of one kind or another, into storage, battery storage, some other kind of storage. I just learned 2 days ago, there is now molten salt storage, which gives you 24 hours of capacity of drawdown. This is going to change every day, every month, every year in the next few years. And the winners are going to be the people who get into that market. And I think that's something that the Crown Prince has understood, that this is going to happen because it has to happen. And the only question to all of us is not whether or not we will get to a low-carbon, no-carbon economy globally, and we will one day. The issue is whether we will get there fast enough to avoid the worst consequences and to hold this planet together livably. 10 million people a year die now just because of the extreme heat and the pollution. 10 million. And we all know what will happen if migration picks up, or we see food production interrupted, water not available. So we have the opportunity to get ahead of this. I'll try to wrap this up very quickly and just say to everybody that no government in the world has the money to get this done. Not even the wealthiest countries. None. This will only happen in the work of government joining with the private sector, and with the private sector very significantly stepping up and taking the lead here. Now, some have done that. I worked, as Larry knows, and Larry was part of helping in this, with the 6 largest banks in America: Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and State Street. And they publicly announced that over the next 10 years, they will invest, not give away, but invest $4.16 trillion minimum, floor, in this transition. I know Larry's talked about what BlackRock will do. Mark Carney, others have been working to pull together a coalition of banks and asset managers around the world. We now have tens of trillions of dollars that are prepared to move on this transition. If you, the governments, will step up and help articulate the projects, make them bankable, be part of this transition at the pace that we need to do it. So, my friends, I'm excited to be here in Saudi Arabia at a moment a few days before we get together to bring the world together to come out with a solution that we all need. And I think it is significant that all of you are here because you know this is going to happen. We hear people in politics talk about how this is existential. Life and death. It is existential. For some people today, not for everybody. If you're a rich country, developed country, doing pretty well, you're okay for a while. But if you're an island state, if you're one of the vulnerable nations, you're already seeing horrible impacts of what is happening. So we have a global responsibility to come together. We have to free up this capital to invest in the transition, first away from coal. And then, if we can have carbon capture, terrific. President Biden has set a goal that by 2035, the United States power sector will be carbon-free. That means no emissions. Doesn't mean that gas or oil may not be fueling, but it means carbon capture may be part of the solution. That's part of the R&D and research and development we have to do. We have to put billions into the development of new technologies and products, and trillions into the transition, and we win this battle. It's that simple. So we really don't have any choice. We have to do this. Everybody knows this is going to happen one way or the other. So the best thing we can do is get together and make it happen fast, make it happen definitively, and make it happen with a just transition to all those people who are going to be dragged along by the countries that have most impacted this. 20 nations equal about 80% of all the emissions. Those 20 nations, we're among them, we're number 2, need to come together in order to get this done. So, Your Royal Highness, thank you so much for convening people. It's an important moment, and I think this is an important meeting. And I hope we translate it fully into the benefits that can flow from success. Thank you.